Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is David Talbot. I'm Managing Director and Head of Research at Red Cloud Securities, and I'm delighted to host another webinar on uranium today. We are going to hear from Standard Uranium Management Team, John Bay, he's Chairman and CEO, and Sean Hilliker, he's President and VPX of the company. Now, during today's webinar, they will provide an overview and outlook, and then we will take some questions. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and we'll get to as many as we can. Before we kick things off, first I need to discuss the fine print. During the Standard Uranium webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I direct listeners to its forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of their corporate presentation. That can be found on the company's website, standarduranium.ca. For Red Cloud Securities, I'd highlight this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell. And we note the call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. So please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Standard Uranium. Now, Red Cloud published a uranium sector report yesterday. It was entitled Rising Prices Back to Moving on Supply Demand After Q4 Government Influences. We also wrote up a 32 uranium stocks, which are also in the report. So Red Cloud, we have a positive short and long-term outlook for nuclear power, given proactive government policies, public acceptance, better economics, climate change impacts, and security of supply. Now, this positive outlook really resulted in additional uranium demand and higher prices. We saw an evolution in this uranium price appreciation over 2023, with consistent price gains earlier in the year, due largely to supply demand and investor buying. But price appreciation gained more speed through September and through fourth quarter. The start of that was really a realization of stronger demand than expected. But then the U.S. government support for nuclear power and the Russian uranium import ban really took over, leading to quite big price jumps later in the year. And we are seeing ongoing price spikes continuing into 2024 as we're up over $103 a pound again today, or at least yesterday. Now, Q1 24 uranium price fluctuations do seem more volatile in both directions, but I think they're biased to the upside, and at least they're on supply side disruption, so supply and demand. Not all the nuclear utilities will receive the uranium that they need and to keep their reactors in operation, but fortunately, we are starting to see the much-needed uranium price incentive. Over the past years, the similar spot and term prices, they did move in tandem, but we're starting to see that divergence of these prices as spot goes higher. So, what I'll do is I will drop this link into the chat box there so you can pull it up, anybody that's watching. But, with that said, why don't we turn the floor over to John and Sean to speak about the company. Guys.
Thank you very much, David, and a great intro and update on the report you put out yesterday. I'm hoping that all the listeners will get a chance to review that as well. So let's get into Standard. So here's our opening slide. We are here to find the fuel to power a clean energy future. Forward-looking statements, as Dave mentioned, are on this slide here. I caution viewers to have a look at that at their own time. And let's get right into it. So this is a map of the Athabasca Basin. So Standard Uranium, we are a Canadian junior uranium exploration and project generator. We switched over to the hybrid of the project generator last year, mid-year. And since that time, we've been very active on the exploration side, as well as getting deals done with JV partners. And we're going to get into that today. I'm going to introduce my partner, Sean Hilliker, as well, is on the call with me. He's our VP of Exploration and President. He's going to be taking us through the technical slides as we get into each of our 11 projects. So, the key thing we're asking by investors all the time is when you're looking for, uranium companies to invest in, what should you be looking for? And for us, we believe we've got all the main components of what's required. That is, number one, you want to have a management team and a board that have actually been in the uranium space, actually know the uranium market and specifically the markets they're operating in. And for us, that's Saskatchewan. rising demand in uranium. I think we're all very much aware of how hot the uranium sector is right now, and we're seeing that in multiple areas, primarily with the number of companies that are flooding into the Athabasca Basin looking to get deals done, and we're seeing that in the terms of the offerings we're doing right now. The renowned location, yes, Athabasca Basin. There's no better place on earth to be looking for high-grade uranium, and we've now got 11 projects in our portfolio, which Sean will walk us through and what we have planned for each of those. And number one, right now we are still pre-discovery, which means we haven't made that major discovery yet. So our share price is at an attractive price to come along with us as we embark on our greatest exploration year ever in 2024. We have 7 projects that are going to be explored, and 5 of those will be explored with drill programs. So a quick snapshot. This is a map of the southwest corner of the Athabasca Basin. You can see those yellow dots, which are significant uranium deposits. Number one, of course, being NextGen's Arrow in the middle there. That is probably the greatest project on Earth that is about to be turned into a mine and a mill. They're anticipating that'll be done by the end of this decade. You can see we're only about 25 kilometers away to the west. And when they build that mine and mill, they're going to build all the infrastructure in this region, which is going to make everyone in this region very attractive should we make a major discovery. And just to the north of us, you can see the JR zone discovered by F3 about 12 to 14 months ago. You think back in time, they discovered that project after looking for almost 15 years. They went from a share price of 5 cents to well into the 50s. That's what can happen when you have a discovery in this region in the Athabasca Basin. So once again, the snapshot, we're a project generator as well as an exploration company. Our flagship is our Davidson River, which Sean will get into. We've got a team that is built around uranium exploration in the Athabasca Basin. Nuclear power is booming, with uranium being the fuel for that. And the short-term catalysts are all our exploration programs kicking off in the next few weeks. Now, when new companies come into the Athabasca Basin and they're looking for partners to work with and potentially do a JV deal with, these are the kind of things that companies should have. And these are when we check every one of these boxes. So number one, we want to have a team with technically experienced geologists. I'm going to let Sean walk us through his team and what experience they have in this region, which is remarkable. We want to have projects that actually have geological merit. You don't just want to have a flag in the ground in the Athabasca Basin because there's a lot of moose pasture out there. Number three, look, you want to have your negotiations and agreements in place with the First Nations partners, and you want to build a strong relationship, and we've got that across all our projects. We've also got all the permits in place for all the exploration we're doing in 2024. We've got skilled drillers. It is so important to have a drill company that's actually done work in this region and have proven they can be successful. And the rest of the vendors as well, the helicopter pilots, the camps you're staying at, the workers to work on your projects. You need to have all those lined up. And of course, to do all this stuff, you have to have the money coming in. And we're fortunate to work with bankers like Red Cloud and have investors like yourself who participate in our financings to keep us funded. On top of that, we have our 4 projects signed with our JV partners. They're going to be paying us cash as well to operate those projects. So we're going to have nice cash flow in 2024, as well as funding needed to continue to work on our Davidson River project, which we'll speak to. And of course, number 8 is the board of directors. You want to have a board that's actually got experience in junior mining and uranium specific as well. And our board is fantastic, and we'll get to a slide on that too. So I mentioned 4 of our projects. So right now, since if you've been following our news releases since July, we have signed 4 deals on our tier 2 projects. Those being Sundog. There's a nice new company that's just started up called Arrow Energy. They were converted from a company called Angold. That is led by Galen McNamara and a number of other geologists, which will point to their website. You can see who they are, but some very technical, strong people in that region. They've done a deal with us on our Sundog project, and we're going to kick off 2024 with probably some geophysics work and then some drilling on that project this summer. Next, we have our Canary Project. The Canary Project was signed with an Australian group called Mamba. We're going to be drilling that project in May. Summit Fusion is also another Australian company. We plan to do the Ascent project right on the back of Canary, so hopefully into May, June. And then we just signed a deal with the ATCO Mining in the last week here, and that's that term sheet, which we hope to move to a definitive agreement, and we could be drilling our Atlantic project in about 2 weeks from now. So stay tuned for that. Overall, those 4 projects total over $31 million into Standard Uranium for the next 3 years if those companies all fulfill the 3-year commitments. So fantastic, with over $9 million in 2024. So I mentioned the Athabasca Basin. Here's a map of the region and those symbols of our logo where all our projects are. Once again, this slide just wants to point out, Saskatchewan is a mining friendly jurisdiction. It's got a great diversified workforce. It's got all the infrastructure in place, and we're seeing more and more of that built. The geological data is there from the government, and it's also incredible resources in the ground with grades, high grade uranium, better than anywhere else in the world by significant amounts. Now, this slide here walks us through our timeline for 2024. Now, some of these might move around depending on a few various factors, but all these projects are going to get work this year. The goal this week is to complete the definitive agreement with ATCO and actually send our drillers to site by the end of this week and be drilling in about 2 weeks from now. That's about a 1.3 million drill program. Following up on that, we're going to get over to Canary and Ascent and do back-to-back drill programs there. And then we're going to do some geophysics work and some boots on the ground on Rus and Corvo, and then come back to Davidson River for the end of the summer. And that'll be 2.5 to 3 million drill program. So an exciting schedule ahead. These dates might change a little bit, but this is sort of the blueprint we're working from right now. I mentioned our team. So on the top, myself and Sean, and then Neil McCallum sandwiched in between us. Neil's been working in the Athabasca Basin as a geologist and a uranium expert for well over 20 years with the Rus Group. Sean McGraw is our CFO. He's been working in this region as well in Canada for 20 plus years as a CFO. Down in the bottom left corner, we have Mike Young, who used to be the CEO of Vimy Resources in Australia. He was that for 8 years and sold that off. Zoya Sheshkova is one of our financial auditors. She came to us from Kazakhstan, where she worked there for several years as a CFO for Uranium One there. And then we have Blair Jordan, our legal and also capital markets expert, and Ken Judge, similar, and a legal guy and also capital markets. Great board of directors. Now, our Davidson River project. This is a map of the southwest corner of the Athabasca Basin. You can see the yellow dots there. You can see Triple R, Arrow from Fission, and Spitfire. And of course, you can see the JR zone from F3, all in this nice region of the southwest corner of the Athabasca Basin. We're going to get into the next half of the presentation with Sean Hilliker, and he's going to walk us through each of our projects and what he likes about them. And I'll pass it on to you now, Sean, to take over and talk about the Davidson River project.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, John. So this slide just is basically a similar map, and just wanted to point out a few things here about the project and why it's our flagship. So this is my old stomping grounds. This is where I cut my teeth in the industry, working at NextGen and developing the Arrow deposit, taking that from discovery through to feasibility. So this is what I know the best, and these rocks in here are very interesting. It was, a really invaluable experience for me to be a part of that team that discovered Arrow and took it to where it is today. It kind of broke the mold on how we understand these deposits, and especially basement hosted deposits in this area, and how they're related to the Athabasca Basin. So this map just shows the magnetics, regional magnetics in the background. You can kind of see the textures there. And if you can draw some lines through here based on the electromagnetics, which are these EM conductors that we talk about. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of uranium geologists talk about EM conductors. Those are kind of the blueprint that map out the fluid pathways that we're looking for, that channel uranium and interact with those uranium-bearing fluids to create these monster deposits that we're looking for. So this is elephant country. Obviously, we know that the Arrow deposit has a massive resource, and same with Triple R. JR zone, F3 just put out some assays, above 60% U3O8, which is bonanza grades compared to the rest of the world. So that's exactly what we're trying to do here, is recreate what we did at NextGen and to emulate, even in a bear market, you look at Fission, you look at NextGen, those were discovered during a bear market, and then JR just kind of at the beginning of this bull run, and extreme share price appreciation there. So that's exactly our goal on Davidson River and why it's our flagship. The blue sky potential here is phenomenal. So this project is over 30,000 hectares. It's our biggest project and a really nice chunk of land. We've actually just added more to it. You can see we've extended it down to the southeast there, and kind of covering the exact same geological setting as where the JR zone was just discovered. So that was our rationale for that, and we have not drilled there at all yet. So we actually haven't been here been back to drill the project for a couple of years now. So we're really excited to get some capital and go start following up on some of the results we've had here. We've hit interesting stuff so far, structures that look just like the structures that host Arrow. We've hit dravite alteration, which is a key indicator mineral and alteration mineral to these high-grade deposits, and then also elevated uranium, of course. So we're going to be going back here later in the summer, as John mentioned, to follow up on those results and test some brand new targets on the more than 70 kilometers of prospective exploration corridors that we have here on this project. So just taking a look at what we've done so far. So like I said, we haven't been back there to drill since the summer of 2022. So we're chomping at the bit here to get the drill bit back going again. So 4 main corridors on the project: Warrior, Saint, Bronco, and Thunderbird. Each one of them, we've hit some really interesting rock types. Like I said, akin to those that we were seeing, pre-discovery at Arrow, drilling at Area A on the Rook 1 project, and etc. So you can see some of this beautiful red and yellow alteration in the top photos there from Thunderbird. That's some really typical alteration that you commonly see with high-grade mineralization. There's also graphite ripping through those structures as well, which is a fantastic sign. That was on the first hole that we drilled on that conductor. So very promising there. And then Warrior and Bronco, again, I was mentioning these EM conductors. These dark colored rocks here are those rocks that are pumped full of graphite. They're very soft relative to the rocks around them. So they like to move and break open and deform and create accommodation space for these uranium bearing fluids to come in and interact with these rocks and precipitate a uranium deposit. So fantastic targets that we have on Davidson. We've also added some new AI and machine learning assisted targeting to the mix here. So we've been working with Gold Spot Discoveries, and those guys, they have a crack team of a lot of really brilliant geoscientists and geophysicists, and lots of which have worked in uranium in the past. So what they've done here is, taken raw data from the Arrow deposit, from RRR, and these ones in the region, and directly matched that and matched the anomalies that we have on Davidson River, line by line, more than a human can do, and basically produced targets where the geophysical signatures look identical to that at these deposits that we know about. So we've added that layer to our targeting and traditional geoscience work that we've been doing here as well. So we've got some really, really fantastic targets that we're excited to go explore this year. So let's move up to our Sundog project. So as John had mentioned, this is an active 3-year option deal with Arrow Energy. So Arrow can earn up to 100% of the project if they complete all 3 years of the deal. This is a really cool project. Something that you don't normally see in the basin is high-grade uranium right at surface in outcrop. So we actually have grades, above high grade. What we consider high grade is more than 1% U3O8. So we've got high grade, over 1% up to 3.5%, and some actually up to 12% in some of these historical trenches right at surface. So tons and tons of targets here to test, bringing in Arrow Energy and also Fortune Bay, doing a deal with Arrow Energy as well. We've kind of consolidated this area into one of the biggest plays up in this part of the world. And we have a ton of targets to explore, and the capital will be pumped into it to do so. So our plans, like John mentioned, are to do a little bit more geophysics in the area and refine these targets throughout the winter months here. And then we'll be hitting this with a helicopter program out of Uranium City in the summer. And that'll probably line up back to back with drilling on Fortune Bay's projects as well, as they do have expenditure commitments there too. So really excited to get back together with the team. John mentioned Galen McNamara. Him and I worked together at NextGen for several years. Garrett Ainsworth also worked with him at NextGen, and he was one of Standard's first board of directors as well. And so really great to get the team back together to do some exploration up here in this super interesting area and breathing life back into this, the first mining camp for uranium in Saskatchewan, which is very cool. Just another map here showing what we did, our latest drill program there. So we've, hit some mineralization in our last drill hole that we drilled in the winter of 2023. So we're going to be following up on that at the Haven discovery that we found a couple of years ago. We've expanded the alteration and structural halo around this deposit and, showing its surface. And, we have dravite that goes from probably 900 meters by 300 meters wide in this area. So extremely prospective, and we'll be moving inland as well, focusing along trend and into the conductor package that runs actually from Sundog onto Fortune Bay's Mermac project. All right, let's jump over to the east side of the basin now. So we've got 8 projects over in the eastern part of the basin now, which is pretty great since it's a super competitive staking environment right now. Really difficult to pick up new land in this area. We've got our 3 original east side projects, Ascent, Canary, and Atlantic, up near the northeast of this kind of major trend that hosts the 2 active uranium mines in Saskatchewan, as well as several mills and other really valuable infrastructure in the area. So we've added on Corvo, Ox Lake, Brown Lake, Cable Bay Southwest, and Rocus. So all of these projects have their own merits, but the main thesis here for exploration is unconformity related high-grade uranium, like John said. So that's what we're looking for on Corvo, Ox Lake, Rocus, and Cable Bay. Those ones actually lie outside the current margin of the Athabasca Basin. So what we're looking for there is really shallow basement hosted uranium mineralization, similar to that was found just recently in the Gemini mineralized zone / Akio. So really fantastic targets to move forward here. Atlantic, we just announced a term sheet with ATCO Mining on that one. So like John said, we're preparing to run our first drill program ever on that. So that's on an east-west trend right by the Hurricane deposit. Canary and Ascent also under option. Canary is signed definitive agreement, so we're planning to drill that in May. And then Ascent, we've got a term sheet out, and we're moving towards the definitive on that in the coming weeks as well. Corvo, Ox Lake, Brown Lake, and Cable Bay and Rocus are all still open for options. So what we're trying to do here is really create a nice, spread of projects at different stages to allow for, companies to come in and join the exploration progress of these projects at different stages. Some of them are a bit cheaper to get into, a little bit more geophysics before they're drill ready, whereas we're creating other turnkey operations that are permitted and drill ready to get going on. So let's start with Atlantic, the one that we just announced. So you can see on the map here, there's the Hurricane deposit. Cameco owns the Dawn Lake project right up against it. You can see the rock showing there as well. So we're on this east-west trend that splits off from the LaRock trend. And this used to be owned by Denison a number of years ago. Now it's us, and ISO surrounds us. And we've got some really interesting things going on here. So you can see that it's been drilled in the past, really anomalous uranium results along this trend. You can see in the bottom left map there, that's where we're going to be focused for the first drill program. There's hole BL 1632, hit 342 parts per million uranium over half a meter. Anything over 1 part per million is anomalous in the sandstone. So really great result. And Denison actually said that, we overshot this target, so it lies further to the south. What we did was we ran some geophysics in 2022, did some gravity over top of these western claims here, and lo and behold, we have a really fantastic target just to the south of that drill hole. So that's going to be one of our priority targets for the winter program this year, and we're really excited to get over there with ATCO and get the drill spinning here in a couple of weeks. So fantastic region to be in. Obviously, Cameco has been active in the area. ISO has been active for a number of years, defining the Hurricane deposit, and I believe they're up there drilling along strike of that right now. So really, really hot area of the basin to be in on the east side, and we're excited to get our drills spinning there as well. All right, let's move up to the northeast to Canary. So this one, like I said, is under option to Mamba Exploration, an Australian company, and really fantastic project here as well. It's hardly been tested. You can see a couple of drill holes on the southern exploration trends there on the project. The main northern trend has never been drilled before. So what we did was we, again, ran a geophysical survey in 2022, did some 3D resistivity over top of that conductor, which really helps identify these potential alteration zones. And, you know, lo and behold, you can see on the cross section here, lines up really nicely with the EM trends. So we've got a heck of a target here, and pretty impressive scale as well. If you look at the map scale there, this thing is large and has the potential to host something really juicy here. So we're excited to go drill this in May. This will be a helicopter program as well, funded by Mamba. So we're really excited to get over here and see what lies beneath this northern conductor. And then I'll also just say something as well about the southwestern conductor, where you can see those two historical drill holes, CRK 137. Really interesting results in that drill hole as well. Some interesting geochem and alteration structure. This was a vertical drill hole, so it didn't really intersect the conductor the way it should have. But if you look at the EM signature of that conductor, the size and scale and response of that anomaly there actually looks almost identical to that at the Rough Rider and J-Zone deposits, just down to the south. So really excited to go follow up on that as well, since it, you know, looks geophysically, the fingerprint of that looks just like a well-known deposit just to the south. All right, ascent. So this one, as we keep going up to the northeast from Atlantic, our drill targets keep getting shallower and shallower. You can see on the map here, the basin edge basically cuts the project in two. We've just recently doubled the size of this project as well to cover the, you know, north and south extents of a geophysical anomaly, as well as the basin edge. So like I mentioned before, what we're looking for here is very shallow, easily accessible, high-grade Athabasca-style uranium, both in the basement rocks and at the unconformity. So you can see our conductor package there, those gray lines ripping through. And then again, some of these density lows defined by gravity work in the past. So we've got some really great shallow targets to hit here as well, which will follow immediately after Canary. All right, let's jump outside the basin for a minute. So here's Rocus. This one has never been tested before, no historical drill holes. However, it does have 0.5% U3O8 right at surface in outcrop. Important distinguishing factor there is looking at outcrop samples versus boulder samples. Boulders can be, you know, eroded and carried away from their original source. So it's fantastic to see, you know, 0.5% right at surface in situ in the original rocks that it is. So, excuse me. So what we've done here is, picked up this project with a really interesting conductive trend coming through here. You can see the magnetic low and all of these uranium showings along that. So the plan for this one, as John mentioned, is to do some boots on the ground mapping, go ground truth these samples, resample to RQAQC standards, and make sure that we're on the right track, and then run some geophysics as well to help refine drill targets before we get some drills spinning on this one. All right, up here, just to the northeast of the Gemini and Accio zones is Corvo. So this project has some good size to it as well, 12,000 hectares. You can actually see the highway going right through the project. So another check mark for this one. Same with Rocus, you know, easily highway accessible, which is fantastic. And again, lots and lots of uranium showings at surface here. Boulders as well as outcrop, and then some anomalous results in some of these historical drill holes as well. I'll point out that cluster that's circled. You can see in the legend, it's labeled the Manhattan showing. So that one actually was pushing 6% U3O8. I think it had 59,000 parts per million uranium in some of the historical results. So again, similar game plan here as Rocus. Get the geo team out there, crash some bush, map these rocks, take some samples and ground truth these so that we can follow them up with the drill bit, following again some modern geophysics to help us refine that and make sure we're spending our dollars as wisely as possible. Okay, similar story here to Cable Bay Southwest. So the Cable Bay shear zone is a major structural discontinuity. I'm sure a lot of you have, been hearing this in some of the news releases from other companies lately. Almost the entire shear zone has been staked up through the basin. The difference here is we're looking just outside the basin margin, so very shallow. We're not, looking at drilling 1,000 meter drill holes here, so more cost effective, plus right along trend from, again, some more uranium showings. And, looking at these major structural discontinuity zones is important for the driving forces behind what forms these deposits. So really good structure happening here. Never been drilled once again, so we'd be looking to do some early work on this, perhaps some geophysics and some boots on the ground work to get this drill ready. Same goes for Brown Lake. So this one is actually just inside the basin. You can see the Fox Lake Road that comes up right by the project. Key Lake Mill facilities down there in the bottom right. So really great area as far as infrastructure goes and uranium. So again, a small little chunk of land here, but really interesting. So it's a long strike from the Shift Lake uranium zone. So you can see a couple call outs on the map there with some of the results. Again, some high grade 2.42% U3O8 over almost a meter. Really interesting and never been drilled. So we've been working on this one and looking to see what we can do as far as some potential deals. This one's still open for option or other sorts of land deals on this. So yeah, we're excited to continue to look at this project and potentially grow it as we go forward. All right, Ox Lake, similar story here. Again, just outside the basin, small chunk of land, but a nice little structural discontinuity there. You can see these kind of north-south trending faults through here. These are what we call Taberner-style faults. It's you can look that up on your own time, but these seem to have, some influence on uranium mineralization in this area. So the major structural grain here is kind of going northeast, southwest, but then you have these north-south structures coming through and disrupting those, potentially, opening things up for uranium to come in and precipitate. So again, you can see the GMZ and Accio zone down there to the southeast. So interesting little piece of land here, and we'll be looking to push this forward with some sort of deal as well. All right, back to you, John, for some more corporate information.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, when you start going through all the projects, we realize how much we've got in front of us to work with. And look, we've got, as we've announced, we've got 7 exploration programs this year, and some of the other projects that we've just recently staked, we'll be looking to do some deals with some other vendors or potentially do some work on those ourselves and get those ready to add to other portfolios later on in the year. Now, this slide is pretty straightforward. It gives you an understanding of where our share price is, what our share price has done in the last last number of months. And at the bottom, it shows you who some of our strategic shareholders are. It's good to know that, we've got players like, Mike Alkin and Sachem Cove. They were one of our first shareholders ever back in 2018 when we were a private company. And they've continued to add in various raises, including the one we just completed in December. We did that raise at 5 cents and we were trading at 9 cents yesterday. And coming off a bit today with the markets in brutal position, but we anticipate we're going to continue to add value and continue to grow the share price as we head into our drilling season and start really marketing hard starting in March at the PDAC. So what I can tell you right now is, look, things are looking much stronger for Standard as we head into 2024. We've got so much activity happening, lots happening with the drill bit and our exploration team, and as well on the marketing front as well. So you can have all kinds of exploration going on, but you've got to tell your story, and Red Cloud's helping us do that with opportunities like what we're doing right now with you. So back to you, Dave Talbot. I'll let you, this is our last slide. If we want to get into some of the questions, I can see Adrian's got a few there for us, and we'll start off maybe with Sean taking some of the technical questions on there from Adrian.
Okay, why don't I've got them all lined up, so why don't I just give them a shot here, and we'll see who decides to answer. So, but anyways, guys, good presentation. So anybody, if you want to put in your questions, feel free to type them into the chat box. And like you said, we already do have quite a few. But John, this is probably your question to start with. Your uranium, Standard Uranium has shifted its focus a little bit recently, and I think we have seen a lot of activity because of it, from simply being just an explorer to becoming a project generator. So could you maybe discuss why you decided to go this route?
Yeah, so this was something we've been looking at for probably almost 2 years. But as we got into the front end of last year, the capital markets and uranium space was getting very, very tight. And we were, we hadn't had a home run with our drill program at this point, and it was getting harder and harder to raise capital. But what we have been doing for 5 years was building out our team, our technical team, building out our portfolio of projects. And we thought the best way to maximize shareholder value was to get those projects worked by bringing in JV partners. And what's unique about Standard is we don't just JV with incoming companies. We actually run the entire program. So when they come to us, they know that they can show up, and this sort of addresses one of Adrian's questions: how do we evaluate new partners? What they need to be is a good company with cash and the ability to continue to raise cash, and have good people on their board and executive team that we've got a connection with or we believe we can work with. From that point, we take it on and we run the entire show. We are the operators. We get paid to be the operator. We get paid with a cash payment and shares every year. We look after everything with our First Nations partners, and we pay them. And we also have all the permits taken care of, all the First Nations agreement done. So we've actually got a turnkey operation, which is very attractive to new people coming into the basin who may not have any experience in uranium before. So it's a great opportunity, and it's why you're seeing Standard get so many deals done at such great terms.
Okay, so you don't really have to rely on their technical expertise. It's because you guys, supply it all.
Exactly. So we've got a very strong technical team, as you know, Dave, guys who've actually been in this region and worked in this region for decades. And it's very important. I mean, uranium is different across the globe, and having experience with specific types of deposits in Saskatchewan makes a big difference. So we're very proud of the team we built, and we're going to continue to add to that team because we keep getting more and more projects moving forward. So Sean, I know, was already looking to continue to build out our team of young, smart geologists.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Arrow and Mamba and Summit and ATCO, the companies that you're working with. Have you seen a trend of what kind of companies are right now looking after or looking out for grassroots exploration projects?
Yeah, definitely. So, we've announced we've done 4 deals, but we've also probably signed CAs with north of 20 companies and probably talked to 30 or 40. And we get, contacted literally, if not every day, every other day right now. Like in the last month, it's been actually insane. So we have companies that come from the complete gambit. Some people who are, coming from different parts of the world with zero uranium experience. Some of them who are actually Canadian junior miners, maybe in a different sector, maybe who've had a uranium experience before, and all the way up to some majors. So one of the things that we didn't talk about today is our Davidson River project, and potentially bringing in a large partner on that one. So we have divided the Davidson River project in 2. And we've got the concept that, look, should a major come along, somebody with that has a lot of cachet to them, background is going to add to us, we may do a deal on Davidson River to do a 75% option on half of that project. So that's not going to be for the typical person we're talking to right now, which typically is a sub 50 million market cap companies we're talking to right now, who literally can get some capital together. They're capitalizing on the hot market, raising more money and funding this year and hopefully years going forward as well.
Mm-hmm. And does being a project generator really change the way you acquire projects? Are there certain criteria you look for? Do you need to just stake them? And how much time do you really spend on picking up further ground versus, say, working your own projects?
That's a good question. So staking is not something that happens every day. It's certain opportunities come up, as you know. Actually, I'll pass this one over to Sean. He can talk about, what it takes to stake projects right now. And I guess from the bigger picture, what our plan is, it's basically finding projects that we believe we can either work ourselves in advance or put together with another project, or potentially stake it and then sell it off to another company as well. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mentioned before, Dave. It's a super competitive environment. Obviously, right now, if you go onto the Mineral Administration Registry of Saskatchewan, or MARS as we call it, that's where you go online to actually stake land in Saskatchewan. The basin I have never seen it so staked up. It's insane. So basically all the way from the eastern edge to base, almost halfway through the basin is solid. Everybody's picking up, everything in between, good projects and all that stuff. So we have a really strict criteria that we use. Like John said, it's not every day that land comes open. It's, people they pick up this land. It's pretty cheap to stake it. It's 60 cents a hectare. But then once it's yours, you have, a kind of a free year, and then you need to spend $15 a hectare. And if you keep it for 10 years, that goes up to $25 a hectare. So we're able to, by doing drill programs, doing geophysics, You're allowed to pay in lieu if you don't do any work in time. Then you can actually just pay straight up, the cost to keep it. But what we want to do is obviously explore these things, move them forward, add value to them. So what we do is, go do these programs, and we can apply that for assessment credits and keep the land. So if you don't do that, the claim lapses, and you can see that. So there's a reopening board on there, and you can see when these claims are going to come open for staking. And, it's like trying to buy tickets to Taylor Swift. It comes open at 10 a.m. or whatever. Everybody's sitting there ready to go. First one to get through gets it, right? And things get really cut up if you're not fast enough. So, that's the results, you get some of these smaller pieces and that type of thing. But we take a good look every time there's some packages of land coming open. We'll sit down as the technical team here in Saskatoon. We'll go through it all and look at all. Saskatchewan's got a fantastic database, like we mentioned. You can look up all the old assessment reports that have work that's been done on these pieces of land, and then we evaluate it and we rank it, and we say, does this fit to our strategy? Would this be something that we want to explore? Would this be good to, like John said, package it up, put a bow on it, and try and either sell it or add it to someone else's portfolio? We're constantly looking on, does it add value to Standard? Does it, is it in the capacity of the team, and do we like it? Is this something that we would work or try and sell? So, we put it through that filter, and it's we come out with what we come out with. Like I said, it's like trying to buy tickets. So it's
let me add one part to that question as well. I mean, when we're speaking to other potential JV partners, they're talking to us about other projects they're looking at and other companies they're looking at doing deals with. And what we constantly hear is they see so many companies that have got absolute moose pasture. And some of these JV partners have got no idea what they're looking at. So they ask us to take a look at them for them and sort of give them some feedback on it. And it's, I can tell you, David, as you probably know, there's a lot of moose pasture in this region. And you really have to be staking land that actually has a geological merit. And Sean and our technical team do a good job of finding out, which projects we want to go after that actually is something we can do something with and actually be proud to share those with potential partners.
Yeah, if Saskatchewan uranium claims are going as quick as Taylor Swift tickets, I just can't wait for those 1,500 meter deep holes in the center of the basin to show.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Dave. There's actually a big structure that cuts the basin in half. It's called the Snowbird Tectonic Zone, and the entire thing is staked right now, like north to south. And that's exactly it. It's 2 kilometers to the unconformity in the middle. So is someone they spent money to stake that. Are they going to go drill a hole there? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. No,
bold use of other people's money to go do that, I would say.
Yeah. And you need social license to get into all those areas as well.
Absolutely.
For instance, you guys, are First Nations involved with all your land banks? Are some of the groups there easier to form a relationship with than others?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I can think if you look back to some of our press releases, we were probably one of the very first companies to get a deal done with the STND group on the north and the eastern side of the basin. We work very closely with them. And we've also, we vet our projects across, what they've got as sort of no-go zones. And we can see that other companies haven't done that because they've staked up regions that they shouldn't be staking in. So it's pretty important to know who your First Nations partners are, not just, talk to them, but actually work with them, build a relationship and get those agreements signed so that everyone knows exactly what to expect going forward. And you keep everyone happy too. We want to have success with their success too.
Right. Okay. Now, most of your work's been done, I guess, specifically near your flagship Davidson River in the southwest corner, down near Fission and NextGen. And I do agree with you. I think Arrow's the best deposit on the planet. And I've been to about 120 of these things around the world. So do you wish to focus your exploration on that area in the southwest, or are you happy to go anywhere in the Athabasca?
Well, Davidson River is our flagship for a reason. I mean, we strongly believe that project has got a home run potential. I mean, we built the company originally 6 years ago on that project, which we acquired from Jody DeRouge, and he loved it as well. When the day he staked it, he staked that back when just after Fission had their Triple R discovery. He'd staked that region up and he'd held onto it for years and years. And there's a long story there, which I won't get into, but it's a remarkable project. That region is, until we got a hold of that land, it had never been explored for uranium. So we've done now 4 drill program's 39 holes, about 16,000 meters. And I think Sean said we've got 70 kilometers of strike length there and well over 100 pinpointed drill targets we want to go after. So it's just going to take time and money to continue to drill that out. So that's one of the reasons we're thinking about bringing in a cache type partner for half of that project to advance it even faster.
Mm-hmm. Would you guys consider seeking out projects in other jurisdictions, maybe looking in the Thelon Basin or outside of Canada?
I'd say no at this point, Dave. I think we're going to stay completely focused on the Athabasca Basin. It's our specialty. We know this region, and there's more than enough work to keep us going here for a long, long time.
Yeah, and some of that work is trying to, nail down the 74 kilometers of corridor on the Davidson River. You've been sort of honing in on targets there for a few years now. How does what you know now influence your next set of drill targets?
It's a great question, and I'll let Sean get to this, but I just want to say one of the partners we brought in on this is Goldspot and their AI technology, which we haven't been able to put to use on a drill program yet, which we're going to be doing this summer. So Sean, I'll let you speak to some of the other vectoring methods we're using and what we've seen and what we like so far.
Sounds good. I mean, these, as you know, Dave, these things are a little bit of a needle in a haystack type scenario, but with no drill holes in the area. So our whole thing was this mirror theory, right? So there's a big regional fold that's basically a U. You got Arrow, Triple R, Spitfire, all along that, the eastern limb of this major fold. So we were like, okay, so, Jody staked up the western limb, basically, of this fold. We know there's world-class uranium endowment on the east side. This fold is cut by the Clearwater River domain, which is a big intrusive feature that basically runs axial planar, meaning just cutting that fold in half along this thing. So there's been, a lot of interesting work by the Geological Survey of Canada speculating on the source of the uranium, the influence of the Clearwater on uranium deposits in this area. And, there's all of these things that kind of played into why don't we, expect to see the exact same thing, i.e. Arrow 2.0 on the western limb of this fold. It's the same geological domain, same rock types in the basement. They're all 3.5 billion year old rocks that have been cooked and metamorphosed like crazy, and same sorts of structures, everything. So that was the assumption we had going into this. First drill program in 2020 was basically, let's go drill our best looking targets, test these conductors. Are the rocks the same? Are the structures the same? Do we see any alteration that's indicative of uranium? Yes, yes, and yes. So we check those boxes. We're like, okay, sweet. We're on the right track here. So the main thing for me on vectoring and basically, being vindicated on our efforts at Davidson, because, we've drilled 16,000 meters. It sounds like a lot. It's not actually that much when you look at some of these other projects that have been being worked by Orano and Cameco and others on the east side for like more than 10 years. There's 173 drill holes over there. They got some showings, but do they have like a resource? No, not necessarily. So, we're just starting to scratch the surface on this with what we've done. And back to the vindication thing for this mirror theory is the JR zone. So before that happened with F3, we could always point to the north on the Smart Lake showing. So that was, it's got really interesting results. It's a JV between Orano, Cameco, and PurePoint, I think. Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's right along trend. It's literally on one of the trends that it runs onto Davidson River. It's on the west side of the Clearwater. So it's like, okay, we could point to that. And then JR zone happened. So like I said, they just drilled 66% on the western side of the Clearwater on a northwest southeast trending conductor, the same as we have on Davidson. So that just completely vindicated our model for Davidson. So we're hungrier than ever to get back there and find the same thing or better on Davidson. So that's why it's the flagship. That's, and like I pointed to before, we've added the new claims to Davidson as well and expanded it. And that actually covers, like I said, the same sort of like a little bit closer to the Clearwater and just like, apples to apples with where JR zone sits relative to that intrusion and what the conductors look like geophysically and the mag and everything like that. So those are big time vectoring points for us. And then on top of that, you know, we've added this new gold spot stuff as an extra layer. So, you know, don't anyone assume that we're just being like, oh, we've got AI on this and they picked it, you know, it picked the targets for us. That's not how it works. It's vetted each step of the way by geoscientists and real people. So, you know, we can make sure that it's not garbage in, garbage out, and we're just, you know, throwing a dart based on what the computer told us to do. That's not the case here. So it's it worked really well, the anomaly matching I was talking about, and we've got some really, really fantastic targets to go start testing, as well as follow-ups. So.
No, you guys sort of answered my next question. I was going to talk about, you know, you mentioned those big discoveries on the east side, you know, Fission and NextGen's Triple R and Arrow.
Yeah. On
the east side of the Clearwater River Domain, and then the F3 JR zone discovery on the west side, which sort of proves that there is uranium on this side. But, you know, those NextGen and Fission are on trend with your property, essentially. Those conductors are expected to continue on this side, but they're direct correlations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think NextGen is also starting a drill program this summer, just north of our Davidson River program as well, doing another, I'm not sure, that I think they announced 30,000 meters across multiple projects, but they too want to look in that same region as well. And let's just point out, you know, F3's JR zone, that's not an overnight success. They've been working that program for, I think it was 15 years. Until they made their discovery about, you know, 12, 14 months ago. So these things take time. You just keep vectoring in, following your detective work, and then make that drill hole happen.
Yeah,
I think I stepped foot on PLN 10 years ago, 2014, before any discovery. So,
well, I mean, they you know, they haven't been drilling it for 15 years consistently. That, you know, there's been, you know, stepped programs all the way along, but still, it's, you know, it's, unless you are extremely lucky and you pick the right target. You know, like Arrow was not our top pick when at NextGen. It wasn't. It was down the list a little bit. So, you know, it's there's an aspect of luck too, I would say.
Yeah, and that's why everybody's work around you matters. You know, ideas change. So
yeah, definitely.
And you know, when you guys drill, what sort of information do you look at to help decide what core size to use? Is there any point using different core sizes in the future, and what are you using now?
Yeah, good question. So all of our drill core is NQ sized drill core, which is pretty standard across, no pun intended, across the basin. We do start off the drill hole with a wider diameter drill core called HQ. And so that helps us get through the overburden and that unconsolidated sand and gravel at the very top, and through the sandstone as well. So we case that off with a HWT, which is, you know, about 7 or 8 inches, and then reduce to HQ. And you can actually core with HQ as well. Lots of people do that through the sandstone, and then reduce to a smaller NQ once they get into the basement rocks. So it's cheaper to drill a smaller diameter core. So NQ is small enough where the cost makes sense, but you can actually still take meaningful data from the drill core. So a big thing we do is oriented drill core. So that helps us take structural measurements, and we can actually figure out which way textures and structures in the rock are oriented based on the orientation of the drill hole. So we use tools that basically tell us that. We put it back together, draw a line, and then we can make measurements off of that. So that's a huge factor for that, is the speed of drilling and the cost. NQ is kind of the best of all worlds for that, and it's still really good for doing the oriented drill core and things like that. I know that, you know, the drilling over in the southwest corner is really technically difficult. I know that F3 and I think F3 Fission for sure, they've been doing a lot of pre-collaring with sonic drilling. So sonic drilling is very, very expensive, but losing drill holes also is expensive and is no fun. So like, you know, once you're onto something like that, it totally makes sense to maybe pay extra, and you know, you can pre-collar with the sonic drill through all of that loose kind of garbage, so to speak, at the top, and then start diamond drilling there. once you're into the basement. So depending on the region you're in, there's different methods that make more sense. On the whole, though, in the basin, NQ diamond drilling is kind of the status quo, and like I said, checks the boxes the best.
Yeah, let me add one final point to that. We hear companies showing up and staking ground and wanting to do drill programs, and then trying to find drilling companies. Drilling companies are essential in this region. This area is so technically challenging. If you have a company that's never drilled it before showing up and trying to experiment and trying to figure out how to drill in this region, you're going to blow through a lot of money and have a lot of lost holes. So Sean has got great relationships, as do I now in this region. We've got a great drill team in base. They know exactly what they're doing. They drilled a lot of work for NextGen back in the day when they worked for a different company. But Brady Stokes and Justin Brain, these guys know what they're doing. They're going to be awesome on our projects this year.
Yeah. How deep is the overburden where you're working?
Go ahead, Sean.
Which project?
Davidson. Let's say Davidson.
It varies from 50 meters up to 230. Wow. So it's it's named Davidson River. Obviously, there's a lot of river valleys coming through there. So there's some of these drumlins and eskers there's quite a bit of topographic relief. It's not flat at all. So depending if you're drilling down, closer down to the river, we, like the first program along Warrior there, it was about 70 meters down to the unconformity type thing. And then up on some of these hills, the first hole we drilled on the Saint corridor, I think it was 220 meters to the unconformity. So that's overburden plus the Devonian sandstones and some of the other material as well, but no Athabasca sandstone on Davidson.
Drilling certainly is expensive, and you got to see down to that basement. So do you use geophysical techniques like AMT or ambient noise tomography? Is that something that you think should become commonplace in the Athabasca?
That's a great question. That's a new technology that's been popping up everywhere in the last couple of years here. I've been having discussions with those guys over the last year. I'm good friends with a couple of the guys that work at Fleet now, and I'm really curious about it. I think it has the potential to add a lot of value. Basically, it's passive seismic. Seismic has been known to image the subsurface quite well. I know that Fission has done seismic, at Patterson Lake South and some other things to help map faults and different formations. So the fact that you can do this for, and go deploy the sensors yourselves, and the fact that it's kind of catching on, and maybe there's some cost savings there between companies, because it is very expensive at this point. I'm super keen to give it a go, but before I spend $1 million on a survey, I want to see the concept kind of proven. So with ISO drilling their ANT anomaly along strike of hurricane right now as we speak, I want to see results from that, see how that goes. I know Baseload is planning an ANT survey and a few others as well. So I'm all for it, and if it works, then game on, let's go. But I would like to see a little bit more proof of concept, because it is extremely expensive at this point in time. So that's
okay. So we're up on the hour here almost. So very final questions here. You've got 7 projects, including those with partners. What's your exploration budget for this year, and are you fully funded? And then I guess what's the lab turnaround at SRC? How quick, especially as things get busier here in the basin.
Yeah, let me take the first question, Dave. So we have 7 exploration programs planned for 2024, 5 of those being drill programs. 4 of those drill programs are fully funded, and the 5th one being our flagship Davidson River. So that one's, we've got about $1 million in the bank right now. We're anticipating a drill program of about 2.5 to 3 million. We've got cash rolling in from our JV partners as the year goes on. And we're also going to have warrants going to be coming into the money in the near future if our share price ticks up a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see where we are in a couple months from now. If we're going to go back to the market and raise capital, there's a chance we will. Or if enough funds come in through warrants, we won't need to. Then we'll be fully funded to do all our programs.
Okay. And lab turnaround?
Yeah, that's a good question. it's slated to be an extremely busy year, not just for us, but kind of across the board. So I know that SRC has been working hard to expand their team and to, kind of streamline things to help all of us out. That certainly could be a bottleneck. It's a little bit out of our control. You can pay extra for trying to expedite your samples, but again, if everybody tries to do that, it's not really going to help. So as long as we're consistently, taking samples to the lab as we go, usually we do shipments, kind of during the program in a couple of different dispatches. So we're not overloading them and waiting for all our results at once. It's we'll see how it plays out. But the great thing about uranium is the scintillometer tells you to get excited before you get lab results anyways, right? So not that you want to hang your hat on scintillometer results, but it's a good way to get the ball rolling in anticipation of confirming that excitement with assays, right? So, at least we have that, not like gold where you cut the core and hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. I've been there. So
yeah,
great. John Bay, Sean Hilliker from Standard Uranium, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, David. Thank you to the crowd for all those questions, especially Adrian. I see him popping up a lot there, so hope we answered your questions today.
I think we got most of them. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Reminder that Red Cloud Securities will be back next week when Alina sits down with Sun Summit Minerals. That's February 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, we have our pre-PDAC conference approaching. That's February 29th, March 1st. We expect close to 100 speakers over 2 days at the event in Toronto, including Standard Uranium and 27 other uranium companies. So I will also sit down with conversation with the two big uranium funds, Guy Keller of Tribeca and Mike Alcon of Sachem. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you for supporting Red Cloud's webinar series.